let's dive into my last takeaway from this week. And it's a guy, we mentioned him in the Desmond Ritter conversation. It's a guy that we were talking very similarly about last week in the same light that we were talking about Desmond Ritter this week. And that is Zach Wilson, man. And my takeaway for Zach Wilson headed forward into the rest of the season is that he might be able to keep this team afloat at least until possibly Aaron Rodgers comes back this season. I mean, that seems like it's more and more every day going to be a possibility, but that's nonetheless. But Zach Wilson does look like a serviceable quarterback, and he looked pretty damn serviceable last night. Finished with I'm a big PFF guy today, but 72.2 passing grade on Sunday Night Football last night against the Chiefs, and that's the second best grade of his entire career so far. So maybe Zach Wilson's turning it around, and I mean, to the eye test, he looked phenomenal. He looked confident last night. He was making some back shoulder throws that were impressive. Now, he did have the fumbled snap that pretty much ended the game, but that's a freak thing. Like that's not it would be much worse if he threw like an interception to end the game. Like that's a lot worse. But like a fumbled snap, that's just a freak accident. And right after the game, he took full responsibility. He was like, "This is my fault. I'm the reason we lost the game." But it was awesome to see how all the support on Twitter, especially, people felt bad for him. People felt like sorry for Zach Wilson, and maybe he doesn't want that. But you saw the support of his teammates, which was awesome to see because it was a question mark. I mean, we saw the reports that Robert Saleh was losing this locker room because of his decision to continue forward with Zach Wilson. And obviously that's not the case as of last night because you saw a ton of teammates coming up and supporting Zach Wilson for his mistake. So that was awesome to see. And I really do think that Zach Wilson can keep this team afloat. I mean, this defense is going to do its thing. I mean, it's on paper, it's one of the best, if not the best defense in the National Football League. So they're going to do their thing as long as they do enough. And this offense around Zach Wilson is awesome. I mean, people tend to forget, but Garrett Wilson still won Offensive Rookie of the Year with Zach Wilson under the helm last year, or at the helm. And I know Mike White was there for a little bit of it, but Zach Wilson and Garrett Wilson did have a connection last year. And something that you see from Zach Wilson that you can't get from anybody, or you can't get from Aaron Rodgers at least, and that I saw last night was his ability to create more. Like he can roll out of the pocket, and I
His
know.
ability
Okay,
to
so
run
like,
in a straight line is better than Aaron Rodgers. That's
okay, okay. Now
probably it.
his ability to avoid the pocket, like get out and roll out to the side, like he can't.
It's
Aaron
the
Rodgers
death.
cannot do that
I get it, but
physically. He
it's the
can't do
death
it.
of him. Like I like Zach Wilson to a certain degree, but partially that is the death of him. Is him immediately bailing out of the pocket, and doesn't help that this offensive line is not played very well at all to start this season. I mean, hell, the first
Exactly, bro.
Aaron Rodgers
Exactly.
played 4 snaps. He got pressured on 2 of them. Like,
Yeah.
and Zach Wilson is a very paranoid quarterback. Like that is one thing that he can create, but he is paranoid as hell. And at a
Didn't
certain
see
point,
any of that last night.
and
I
you
didn't see
didn't,
any
and
of that.
that's kind of the thing, and that's why this is the headline right now. Is we're saying that he might be able to keep the ship afloat, despite the fact that through 2 games and 3 quarters to this point, it was sit him down for Chris Strevler or Trevor Simeon or anything else other than this. Last night looked good, and I don't want to take too much stock in that because there were some very weird things going on, like the fact that, you talked about PFF. Zach Wilson outgraded Patrick Mahomes by 20 points. Patrick Mahomes graded out at a 52.2. And I believe I saw today, and I'm not sure if it was throughout his entire career or just his NFL career, but I'm pretty sure it said since high school, that was the first time that a quarterback on an opposing team of Patrick Mahomes had more completions, more yards, more touchdowns, and less picks than Patrick Mahomes since he was in high school. And it was Zach Wilson. It wasn't Josh Allen. It wasn't Joe Burrow. It wasn't Tom Brady. It wasn't Baker Mayfield at Oklahoma. It was Zach Wilson. Like,
Exactly.
the
And
guy who, to
that's
this
a
point, has been
testament to
awful.
his clutch factor, bro. A little bit, because it's
Oh,
like,
boy.
dude, I know. Okay, maybe I'm getting a little off the rails here, but like, I think that Zach Wilson looked more, and this is not an overstretch at all. He looked more comfortable than any other point in his career
Oh,
last night.
yeah. Like, he just even looking at this season, he looked way more comfortable. And that's another thing. Like, you talked about Garrett Wilson, man. Like, tonight or last night, it felt together. Like it didn't feel like those two were like Garrett Wilson's like, you got to give me the ball, and Zach's like, look, I can't. It just felt like they were on it, and maybe that's
It's
what they
like
need to
that.
do.
It's that Tim Robinson sketch
I
where he's
can't.
like, I can't drive. I don't know how.
Like that, and that's how it felt for the first 3 weeks. I mean, we saw that like whole meme of like, oh, they just come together and Garrett Wilson yells at him and then Zach Wilson throws a touchdown to him. That happened like in each of the first 3 weeks. They threw the ball to him 14 times last night, and that worked. Like,
Yep.
boom. That worked, and it honestly it opened up the run game a little bit. The running game in weeks 2 and 3 was atrocious. Breece Hall couldn't get anything going. Dalvin Cook couldn't get anything going. I think they only ran the ball like 8 or 9 times against Dallas. I understand that they were at a deficit for the majority of that game, but you got to establish the run to a certain degree. They didn't do that. They were able to do that a little bit last night. Breece Hall had a big run. Kind of felt a little bit like not a J.K. Dobbins type thing, but he did get caught, and that's, Breece Hall doesn't get caught on that. We saw that in the early parts of last year. Breece Hall shouldn't be getting caught. But look, I'm not going to say that this team's going to just snap of a finger, turn this thing around. I know that this sounds stupid. I think Aaron Rodgers being there, in the stadium, in the press box, kind of gave Zach Wilson a little bit of confidence, and I'm almost certain that's why Aaron Rodgers was there. Was because he like Zach Wilson is a kid, like he's older than you and me, but like when you
barely,
as a football player, like he has, this sounds going to sound rude, but he has the mind of a child. Like he needs constant reinforcement of like
all quarterbacks
you're good,
all
and but Zach Wilson to a much more serious degree, especially when they've had to deal with the amount of criticism that Zach Wilson has over the last 3 years. Aaron Rodgers was brought in to be his replacement because of how bad the quarterback situation has been recently. And for him to be thrust into this, I can't imagine he, all guys stay ready, but he didn't think he was going to be the starting quarterback for the remainder of the season, stepping into the shoes of one of the 4 or 5 best quarterbacks ever 4 snaps into the season. And I think it's going to take him a little time to adjust, and we maybe saw the culmination of it last night. I don't think that this is going to be like all right, well, Zach Wilson's going to become the number 2 pick that he was supposed to be, but we may have seen the Jets season turn around last night. Like, they lose. We'll have this quick conversation. The calls that were made at the end of that game, I'm not the NFL is rigged person. I think that's,
now I am.
Conspiracy theory thing. The fact that the flag got thrown after the ball was picked makes me a little curious, and the fact that the Chiefs
question why I'm analyzing this league if the whole thing is scripted anyway.
The NFL has been really cracking down on Chiefs offensive linemen to start this season, and then there's a very obvious like defensive lineman going, "Hey, I'm getting held here,
holding this guy, bro."
On a 3rd and 23, 4th and 23 Patrick Mahomes run. Taylor Swift is in the building. That whole thing is going on. ESPN, SportsCenter, Bleacher Report, NFL will not shut up about it. It's getting a little old at this point. It's almost getting old to say that it's getting old. That's how old it's getting with this whole Taylor Swift thing. But immediately the very next day, after some very questionable calls, that the Chiefs win, we see Taylor Swift is the header for for the NFL's Twitter page, and in the Instagram bio for the NFL, the Chiefs are 2-0 as Swifties.
Definitely should have been one of our headlines this week. This was the big takeaway this morning. I mean, once everybody saw that,
and I'm a Steelers fan, I could give a shit about either one of these teams. One of the teams that I've been pulling for is the Jets. I love Garrett Wilson. I love Aaron Rodgers. I like Zach Wilson coming out. I like Salah a lot. Maybe it's the Hard Knocks thing. I don't know. But I'm a little bit drawn to this team. I was pissed last night watching that game.
Me too.
Because I think, I think they got screwed. And you talked about it a little bit with Zach Wilson turning the ball over. Not very many times do you fumble the ball with 7 minutes and 40 seconds left at the 50-yard line and expect to not get the ball back.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen very often. Mm-mm. For God's sakes, when Patrick Mahomes had that 23-yard run, that was from the 50. They got 20 yards on that one play. So even it wasn't like a clock management problem or anything. It's just very rarely would you be like, okay, we've turned the ball over with 7 minutes and 24 seconds left. That's it. We're done. Just
There was
phone it in.
something, all that I will say is that there was something really weird about the second half of yesterday's game. There
It
was
was. I mean, but you got to remember, like, it was 17-0 for Kansas City at one point, and the Jets just started to build a little bit of momentum. Zach Wilson, turned it up a little bit. Patrick Mahomes turned the ball over twice. Like, I saw somebody like tweet, like I was a reporter or something, and he was like, I've gotten 3 texts saying, like, is Mahomes sick? Because, like, there were just like some throws where it was just like he had like a
well,
30-yard ball, and it just like was like 6 or 7 yards
tell
short, and it's
me,
like that
tell
guy
me,
doesn't do that.
tell me why after his first interception he points up out of the booth and does the Taylor Swift heart.
I think I missed that. I might have missed
That
that.
that was, I was like, what is going on? It
See,
might not have
now
been his first pick. It was some bad play that happened, and then he was like that. I was like, oh my god,
I was
this
a
guy.
little weird. I've never been like how people like hate the Patriots and hate the Cowboys. I just hate the Ravens. Like that's pretty much it. But like people like to hate the best, and I get that a lot of people hate Mahomes for that reason. And I've never really seen that, but last night when he like slid and didn't score the touchdown and everybody was like, "Oh my god, he's so selfless." And then he stands up and is like, "Are you not entertained?"
Yeah, does
I was
that
like,
fucking
"Okay,
yeah.
man. Do you not realize like the context of what just happened and why you're here right now? Maybe you should just kind of walk back to the huddle and maybe keep it down a little bit."
Simmer down.
Um
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm not here to put the NFL into question. Again, I've never been like that guy where it's like, oh, it's all rigged for ratings, yada, yada, yada. But there were definitely some very strange things going on in last night's game. And Robert Saleh 100% has every right to be pissed. If I
Exactly.
was him in that press conference last night and then probably again today or tomorrow, I'd be flipping podiums, cussing out reporters, all kinds of stuff about what
Yeah,
happened, and I'd eat the fine. I'm sure Woody Johnson would be willing to pay
he's
that
good
fine
for it.
for him. So,
Yeah,
and he's going
he's
to
good for it.
because he definitely is going to receive a fine after what he said to the refs last night.
Whatever, man. It's fine. But anyway, great game for Zach Wilson last night, despite the refs' vendetta against the Jets. This was a great game from Zach Wilson. You can't pin that. I mean, it was a mistake, sure, at the end of the game, fumbling the snap, but it shouldn't
I
have cost
mean,
him a game,
yeah,
like you said. And that's a freak thing that happens. Like, that's not a skill based thing. Like, that's just like, damn, that really sucks that that happened.
like
So,
that happens like once a season for everybody, and they happen to
right.
lose the fumble, and it happened to be the last possession of the game on Sunday
Josh
Night
Allen did
Football.
it on his goal line and to end up with a safety,
Josh
at one
Allen did
point.
it in Week 1 against the Jets, and that ultimately cost them that game. Jets have a free win
Facts.
because Josh Allen fumbled a snap.
Facts, dude. I didn't even think about that. So, like, it comes
Exactly.
full circle for Zach Wilson. I loved what I saw from him last night. Really, it's just a feel good story, him coming back like this. And I do think that there is a little bit to, because, most people I saw yesterday, most people are in a boot, completely stationary, can't get up, go anywhere for at least 12 weeks after an Achilles tear. Aaron Rodgers was speed walking in crutches on the sideline yesterday.
Yeah,
Speed walking.
I think that the
He
idea
had
of
a revolutionary surgery.
I know
He got a replacement Achilles in there. So like it's a new type of procedure, not the same type of Achilles surgery that everybody else has gotten. So I think there is a little bit, this is definitely tinfoil hatish,
oh yeah.
but I think that there is a little bit to the fact. I mean, you mentioned it that Aaron Rodgers was at the game last night, and that gave Zach Wilson a little bit more confidence. I think Zach Wilson seeing Aaron Rodgers walk around like that, he's like, dude, this guy really is trying to come back for the playoffs. Like, he really wants to be back for this team this season, and that's Aaron Rodgers' goal this year. And I think that the team is really starting to believe that. And I think that that's a mental security for Zach Wilson that, like, hey, if I can just keep this team afloat until our guy comes back, then that's what I need to do. That's what I can do for this team. And I think Aaron Rodgers showing up, walking around on the sidelines last night, like you said, completely changed the narrative for this Jets team and gave them a sense of confidence that they didn't have before. So I think that Zach Wilson, to bring this completely full circle, can keep this team afloat until a possible Aaron Rodgers return late this season.